Do-hyun wiped the grease from his hands as he looked at the broken machine on his workbench. The blue lights that should have been glowing were dark. The metal was cold and silent. Another alien device that nobody else could fix had found its way to his small shop in the repair district. He had been working on Earth machines since he was a boy. When the aliens came and offered jobs fixing their technology, most humans said no. The alien devices were too strange, too complicated. But Do-hyun was curious. He wanted to understand how these machines thought and worked. Now he was the only human mechanic in this part of the galaxy who could fix Vilethron technology. The tall, thin aliens with their silver skin and large eyes brought him their most difficult problems. They paid well, but they always looked surprised when he succeeded. The door to his shop opened with a soft sound. Do-hyun looked up and nearly dropped his tools. A figure in a dark hood stood in the doorway. Even with the hood hiding her face, he could tell this was someone important. The way she moved, the expensive fabric of her clothes, the two large guards, who waited outside. Everything said royalty. The figure pushed back her hood. Do-hyun had never seen Empress Nari in person, but everyone in the galaxy knew her face. She ruled the Velthran Empire with wisdom and strength. Her silver skin seemed to glow in the light of his workshop, and her dark eyes held a sadness that made Do-hyun's heart hurt. "You are the human mechanic," she said. Her voice was smooth but tired. "The one they call the Machine Whisperer." Do-hyun nodded. "I fix things that are broken, Your Majesty." The Empress reached into her robes and pulled out a small device. It looked like a crystal cube with metal wires running through it. She placed it carefully on his workbench. "This is not just any machine," she said. "This contains my daughter." Do-hyun stared at the device. "Your daughter?" Princess Mireille was sick, very sick. "The doctor said she would die if we did nothing. So we tried something new. We moved her mind, her soul, into this artificial form. We thought we could save her this way." The Empress's voice shook as she spoke. "The transfer worked. She lives, but something went wrong. She cannot speak. She cannot communicate. For 3 years, my best scientists have tried to fix this. They all failed." Do-hyun picked up the device gently. It was warm to the touch. He thought he could feel a very soft vibration like a heartbeat. "The doctors say she is alive in there," the Empress continued. "They can measure her thoughts, her dreams. But she is trapped. She cannot tell us what she needs or how she feels. She cannot say if she is in pain or if she is afraid." Tears began to run down the Empress's silver cheeks. "I am the ruler of 1,000 worlds. I have the best technology in the galaxy, but I cannot help my own daughter." Do-hyun held the device up to the light. Inside the crystal, he could see tiny lights moving like stars. Something about the pattern reminded him of brain activity. This was not just a machine. This was a person. "Why did you come to me?" he asked. "Because you do things differently," the Empress said. "My scientists treat everything like a logic problem. They think in straight lines. But you listen to machines. You feel what they need. Maybe you can feel what she needs too." She reached into her robes again and pulled out a data pad. "I have brought all the technical information. Everything we know about how the transfer was done. Everything we have tried." Do-hyun looked at the data pad, but did not take it. "What do you want me to do?" The Empress looked directly into his eyes. "Make her speak again. Let me hear my daughter's voice. And if I cannot, then you will have tried when no one else would." She paused, then spoke again with the voice of a mother, not an empress. "But if you succeed, if you give me back my daughter's voice, I will give you everything. My throne, my wealth, my empire. Name your price." Do-hyun was quiet for a long moment. He thought about what the Empress was asking. 3 years of the best scientists in the galaxy had failed. The technology was beyond anything humans had ever created. The chance of success seemed very small, but as he held the device, he felt something. It was like when he worked on old Earth machines that had been running for decades. Sometimes they developed personality, quirks that made them more than just metal and circuits. This device felt alive in the same way. "I will try," he said finally. The Empress closed her eyes and let out a long breath. "Thank you. But I work differently than your scientists," Do-hyun warned. "I might do things that seem strange. I might talk to her even though she cannot answer. I might play music or use methods that your people think are foolish." "Do whatever you think is right," the Empress said. "I trust you." She turned to leave, then stopped. Her name is Mireille. She loved music and flowers. She was kind to everyone, even the servants. She laughed often before she became sick. After the Empress left, Do-hyun sat alone with the device. He placed it gently on a soft cloth and pulled his chair close to the workbench. "Hello, Mireille," he said softly. "My name is Do-hyun. Your mother asked me to help you." The lights inside the crystal seemed to flicker for just a moment. It might have been his imagination, but Do-hyun did not think so. He began to hum a simple tune, something his grandmother had sung to him when he was young. As he hummed, he started to clean his tools and organize his workspace. He wanted Mireille to know she was safe, that someone was there with her. "I know you cannot answer me yet," he said as he worked, "but I want you to know that I believe you are in there. I believe you can hear me, and I am going to find a way for you to speak again." The device grew slightly warmer in the soft light of the workshop. Do-hyun smiled. This was going to be the most important repair job of his life. He would not let the princess down. He would not let her mother down. Somewhere inside that crystal cube, a consciousness that had been silent for 3 years felt hope for the first time. Do-hyun spent the first day just watching the device. He did not try to open it or connect any tools. Instead, he placed it on his desk and went about his normal work. Every few minutes, he would talk to Mireille as if she were sitting next to him. I'm fixing a navigation system now," he would say. "The owner says it keeps going in circles, but I think it is just confused about which way is home." Each time he spoke, the tiny lights inside the crystal would change their pattern slightly. It was very subtle, but Do-hyun noticed. His years of working with machines had taught him to see the smallest changes. On the second day, he brought a small speaker from his apartment. He played gentle music while he worked, earth songs with soft melodies and peaceful sounds. The lights in Mireille's device began to pulse in rhythm with the music. "You like this song," Do-hyun said. "It was my mother's favorite." The pulsing grew stronger. On the third day, Do-hyun finally looked at the technical data the Empress had given him. What he read made him angry. The Velthron scientists had treated Mireille like a broken computer. They had tried to reprogram her thoughts to follow logical patterns. They had attempted to force her consciousness into rigid communication protocols. "No wonder you cannot speak," Do-hyun said to the device. "They were trying to make you think like a machine instead of like a person." He studied the technical diagrams more carefully. The device was incredibly advanced. Mireille's consciousness existed as patterns of energy that moved through the crystal matrix. The patterns were complex and beautiful, like a dance of light and thought. But there was a problem. The communication interface had been designed for pure logic. It expected thoughts to be organized in straight lines, like computer code. Human thoughts did not work that way. They were messy, emotional, full of connections that jumped from one idea to another. Do-hyun realized that Mireille was trapped between two worlds. Her original alien mind was trying to express itself through human-influenced consciousness. But the interface only understood rigid Velthron logic. "The problem is not that you are broken," he told Mireille. "The problem is that they built you, a voice that cannot say the words your heart wants to speak." That evening, Do-hyun went for a walk in the city. The Valthran capital was beautiful but cold. Everything was perfectly organized and logical. The buildings were all the same height. The streets formed perfect grids. Even the gardens had flowers planted in mathematical patterns. As he walked, he thought about the difference between human and alien minds. Humans were emotional, creative, sometimes illogical. They made decisions based on feelings as much as facts. The Valthrons were the opposite. They valued pure logic and perfect order above all else. Mirai was caught between these two ways of thinking. Her consciousness had been changed by the transfer process, becoming something new. But the interface expected her to communicate like a traditional Valthron. The next day, Do-hyun began to experiment. He connected sensors to Mirai's device and played different types of music. Classical pieces made the energy patterns flow in. Smooth waves. Rock music created sharp, excited bursts. Sad songs made the patterns move slowly and gently. "You feel the music," he said. "That is something the scientists did not consider. They thought consciousness was only about thinking, but you are feeling too." He tried playing recordings of laughter. The energy patterns danced and sparkled. When he played sounds of crying, they became slow and heavy. Mirai was responding emotionally to everything around her. But when Do-hyun tried to activate the communication interface, nothing happened. The device remained silent. The interface could not translate Mirai's emotional responses into words that the Valthran language could understand. Do-hyun spent hours studying the interface design. It was elegant and efficient, but completely logical. There was no room for feelings, for uncertain thoughts, for the kind of messy communication that humans used every day. "They built you a voice that can only speak in mathematics," he told Mirai, "but your heart wants to speak in music." That night, Do-hyun had an idea. Instead of trying to force Mirai to use the existing interface, what if he built her a new one? What if he created a communication system that could handle both logic and emotion? He began sketching designs on paper. The new interface would need to accept multiple types of input, not just organized thoughts, but feelings, images, even musical patterns. It would be like teaching someone to paint with colors instead of just drawing with black ink. The work would be difficult. He would need to understand both human and Valthran technology. He would need to create something that had never existed before. A bridge between two completely different ways of thinking. But as he looked at Mirai's device, watching the beautiful patterns of light that danced inside the crystal, Do-hyun felt confident. This was not just a repair job anymore. This was about creating something new, something that could help beings from different worlds understand each other. "Tomorrow we start building you a new voice," he told Mirai. "One that can speak the language of your heart." The lights inside the crystal seemed to brighten, as if Mirai was smiling. For the first time in 3 years, the princess had hoped that she might speak again. Do-hyun smiled too. He had found the real problem. Now he just needed to build the solution. It would not be easy, but he had something the Valthran scientists did not have. He understood that consciousness was more than just logic. It was feeling, hoping, dreaming. And dreams, Do-hyun knew, always found a way to become real. Building a new communication interface was like trying to teach color to someone who had only ever seen black and white. Do-hyun worked for days, connecting Earth technology with Valthran systems. His workshop became a maze of wires, crystals, and blinking lights. The Valthran nobles heard about his project and came to watch. They stood in his doorway with their silver faces showing disapproval. "This is foolish," said Counselor Yuki, the head of the science division. "The human plays with primitive devices while our experts have already determined the problem cannot be solved. Perhaps the princess is simply lost," suggested another noble. "The consciousness may have degraded beyond recovery." Do-hyun ignored their comments and continued working. He had connected Mirai's device to a new system that could process multiple types of signals: music, colors, vibrations, temperature changes, anything that might help her express what she was feeling. "Tell me what you think, Mirai," he said as he adjusted the settings. "I know you are listening." The nobles laughed quietly among themselves. "The human talks to a machine as if it were alive," one whispered. But Do-hyun noticed something they missed. Every time he spoke directly to Mirai, the energy patterns in her device changed. She was responding, trying to communicate. The problem was not that she could not think or feel. The problem was that no one had given her the right tools to express herself. After a week of testing, Do-hyun was ready to try something new. He had built an interface that could accept emotional input and translate it into patterns of light and sound. It was not perfect, but it was a start. He activated the system and spoke to Mirai. "I have made something for you. It is like a paintbrush for your thoughts. Try to show me how you feel." At first, nothing happened. The new interface hummed quietly, waiting for input. Then, slowly, colors began to appear on the screen connected to Mirai's device. Soft blues and greens swirled together like water. "Sadness," Do-hyun said. "You feel sad." The colors shifted, becoming warmer. Gold and orange mixed with the blue. "But also grateful," he continued. "You are glad that someone is trying to help." Suddenly, music began to play from the speakers. Not a song that Do-hyun had programmed, but something new. A melody that seemed to come from Mirai herself. It was beautiful and haunting, filled with loneliness, but also with hope. The nobles stopped laughing. They stared at the screen in shock as colors danced in rhythm with the music Mirai was creating. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Yuki. "Machines do not create music." "She is not a machine," Do-hyun said firmly. "She is a person who has been trapped in silence. And now she is finding her voice." The music continued for several minutes, telling a story without words. Do-hyun could hear themes of fear, isolation, and pain, but also love, especially when the melody became warm and gentle. That part, he realized, was Mirai thinking about her mother. When the music stopped, the workshop was completely quiet. Even the nobles seemed moved by what they had heard. "How is this possible?" Counselor Yuki asked. His voice was different now, less arrogant and more curious. "Your scientists tried to fix Princess Mirai like she was a broken computer," Do-hyun explained. "But consciousness is not just logic. It includes feelings, creativity, dreams. The princess needed a way to express all parts of herself, not just the logical parts." Over the following days, more nobles came to watch Do-hyun work with Mirai. Word spread throughout the capital that the human mechanic was achieving something impossible. The princess was communicating through music, colors, and patterns that expressed complex emotions and ideas. But not everyone was pleased with this progress. Some nobles worried that if a human could succeed where Valthron's science had failed, it would damage their reputation as the most advanced species in the galaxy. "This is dangerous," Counselor Hyunwoo told his colleagues. "If other species learn that human methods are superior to ours, they may begin to question our authority." "The human uses primitive emotional techniques," agreed another counselor. "These are not proper scientific methods." They demanded that Empress Nari stop the project, but the Empress had heard the music her daughter created. She had seen the beautiful patterns of light that showed Mirai's thoughts and feelings. For the first time in 3 years, she knew her daughter was truly alive and aware. "Continue your work," she told Do-hyun when the nobles complained. "My daughter is speaking again, even if it is not in words yet." Do-hyun understood that his success was causing political problems. But he also knew that Mirai was making incredible progress. Each day, her communications became more complex and clear. She could express different emotions through music. She could create visual patterns that showed her memories. She could even make the interface vibrate in ways that felt like touch. "You are learning to paint with all your senses," Do-hyun told her. "Soon, you will be able to paint words too." But some nobles were not content to simply complain. They began to plot ways to stop the project. If they could prove that the humans' methods were dangerous or unreliable, they could convince the Empress to abandon the experiment. One evening, as Do-hyun was closing his workshop, Counselor Yuki arrived with several guards. "The council has voted," he announced. "This project must end. You are using unauthorized modifications to royal property. The princess's device must be returned to proper Vilethran scientists." Do-hyun stood protectively in front of Mirai's device. "She is not property. She is a person." "She is a failed experiment," Yuki replied coldly. "And you are a human who has overstepped his boundaries." As the guards moved forward, the speakers in Do-hyun's workshop suddenly erupted with sound. But this was not music. This was noise, harsh, angry, demanding. The lights connected to Mirai's device flashed red and white in rapid patterns. Everyone in the room could understand the message, even without words. Princess Mirai was angry. She was protesting. She was refusing to be taken away from the one person who had listened to her. The guards stopped, uncertain. They had never seen an AI display such strong emotions. "You see?" Do-hyun said to Counselor Yuki. "She has opinions. She has feelings. She is choosing to stay here because this is where she feels safe." The protests from Mirai's device continued until the counselor and his guards left the workshop. Only then did the sounds fade, replaced by gentle music that seemed to say, "Thank you." Do-hyun smiled and patted the device gently. "We will keep working together, Mirai. Soon you will have words to go with your music." But he knew the political pressure was growing. If he was going to help Mirai speak in words, he needed to work faster. The nobles would not give up easily, and time was running out. The breakthrough came on a quiet morning when Do-hyun was drinking tea and listening to Mirai create music. She had been experimenting with different melodies, each one more complex than the last. Suddenly, the music stopped, and a new sound came from the speakers. Do-hyun. The teacup fell from his hands and shattered on the floor. He stared at the device in amazement. "Mirai, did you just say my name?" "Do-hyun," the voice came again, clearer this time. It was soft and musical, with an accent that mixed Vilethran pronunciation with something uniquely her own. "Thank you." Tears filled Do-hyun's eyes. After weeks of work, Princess Mirai had spoken her first words in 3 years. "Can you say more?" he asked gently. "I remember everything," Mirai said slowly, as if testing each word. 3 years of silence, 3 years of screaming inside my mind while no one could hear me. But you heard me. You listened when I could only sing." Her voice grew stronger with each sentence. "They tried to fix me like a broken machine, but you treated me like a person who was lost and needed to find her way home." Do-hyun sat down heavily in his chair. "How much can you tell me now?" "Everything," Mirai replied. "My consciousness is intact. The transfer worked perfectly. The problem was never with my mind. The problem was with their understanding of what a mind could be." As they talked, Mirai revealed the truth about her condition. The sickness that had threatened her life was not natural. Someone had poisoned her slowly over many months. When the doctors suggested transferring her consciousness to save her life, the same person had sabotaged the communication interface. "Who would do such a thing?" Do-hyun asked. "My uncle Jae-hyun," Mirai said with sadness in her voice. "He is next in line for the throne after me. If I could not communicate, I could not rule. He thought I would remain silent forever, and eventually my mother would name him as her heir." This news was disturbing, but Do-hyun had a more immediate problem. The nobles who opposed his work would demand proof that Mirai was truly restored. They would not simply accept her word. They will test you, he warned. They will want you to prove that you are really yourself and not just a clever program. Let them test me, Mirai said with confidence. I have abilities now that I never had before. The transfer changed me, made me more than I was. I can process information faster than any pure biological mind. I can access computer systems directly. I can think in ways that neither human nor Valthran minds were designed for. The next day, Empress Nari came to the workshop. When she heard her daughter's voice greeting her with, "Hello, Mother," the powerful ruler broke down and wept. "My child," she whispered, touching the device gently. "I have missed your voice so much." "I am sorry I could not speak sooner," Mirai replied. "But Do-hyun gave me the tools I needed. He understood that I had become something new, not something broken." The Empress looked at Do-hyun with deep gratitude. "You have given me the greatest gift in the universe. Name your reward, and it shall be yours." But before Do-hyun could answer, Counselor Yuki arrived with a group of officials. They had heard rumors that the princess was speaking and had come to investigate. "We demand proof," Yuki announced. "Anyone can program a device to speak words. We need evidence that this is truly Princess Mirai's consciousness." "What kind of proof would satisfy you?" the Empress asked coldly. "Let her solve the crystal maze." "Problem," suggested Counselor Hyunwoo. "It is a puzzle that has stumped our best scientists for years. If she can solve it, we will accept that her mind is truly restored." The crystal maze was a legendary problem in Valthran science. It involved navigating through a complex mathematical structure that existed in 11 dimensions. The puzzle was so difficult that no individual had ever solved it. Only teams of scientists working together for months had managed to find partial solutions. "That is not a fair test," the Empress protested. "The puzzle is impossible for any single mind to solve." "If she is truly enhanced as you claim," Yuki replied, "then perhaps she can do what no one else has done." Mirai's voice came from the speakers, calm and confident. "I accept the challenge, but I will need access to the Empire's main computer network." Do-hyun felt nervous. "Mirai, are you sure about this?" "Trust me," she replied. "I understand how my new mind works now. I can think in ways that neither pure biological nor pure artificial intelligence can achieve." The officials connected Mirai's device to the Empire's most powerful computers. On the main screen, the crystal maze appeared, a shifting, complex structure that hurt to look at directly. Mirai began working immediately. The maze responded to her touch, pathways opening and closing as she explored its depths. But instead of following traditional approaches, she did something unexpected. She began to treat the mathematical puzzle like a piece of music. "She is applying emotional logic to a pure math problem," Do-hyun observed with amazement. Where Valthran scientists had tried to solve the maze through careful calculation, Mirai was feeling her way through it. She sensed the rhythm and flow of the mathematical relationships. She found patterns that logic alone could not detect. In just 2 hours, she had solved not only the main puzzle, but also discovered 3 additional solutions that revealed new properties of the mathematical structure. The watching officials stood in stunned silence. Counselor Yuki's silver face had gone pale. "Impossible," he whispered. "Not impossible," Mirai corrected him. "Just different. I think with logic like you do, but also with intuition like humans do. I can feel mathematical relationships as well as calculate them. This makes me more capable, not less." Her solution to the crystal maze was elegant and beautiful. She had not just solved the problem, she had shown new ways to approach complex puzzles that no one had ever considered. "This changes everything," Counselor Hyunwoo said quietly. "If consciousness can be enhanced rather than just transferred, the possibilities are unlimited." but Mirai had more revelations to share. I have also been investigating my own poisoning while we talked. I can access security records and analyze data faster than any normal investigation. I know who tried to kill me, and I have proof. The evidence she presented was overwhelming. Uncle Jae-hyun had not only poisoned her, but had also bribed the technicians who designed her communication interface to make it deliberately incompatible with her enhanced consciousness. As the officials arrested her uncle, Mirai spoke to her. "Mother, I am ready to take my place as your heir, but first, I want to do something for the person who saved me." She turned her attention to Do-hyun. "You gave me a voice when no one else could. Now, I want to give you something in return. Not gold or titles, but knowledge. I want to teach others how to build bridges between different kinds of consciousness. Together, we can help beings from all worlds understand each other better." Do-hyun smiled. This was better than any treasure the Empress could have offered. The chance to help other trapped minds find their voices was worth more than all the wealth in the galaxy. The arrest of Uncle Jae-hyun sent shockwaves through the Veltron Empire. For the first time in their history, a member of the royal family had been exposed as a traitor through evidence gathered by an artificial intelligence. But the bigger shock was how that intelligence had been restored. Not by advanced Veltron science, but by a human mechanic using methods they had considered primitive. News of Mirai's recovery spread to other worlds in the Empire. Species that had been dominated by Veltron technological superiority began to whisper among themselves. If human methods could solve problems that Veltron science could not, what did that mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Counselor. Yuki found himself in an impossible position. He had spent years claiming that Veltron methods were the most advanced in the universe. Now he had to explain how a human with basic tools had succeeded where their best scientists had failed. The human got lucky, he told the other counselors. This was a special case, not proof that their methods are superior to ours. But other members of the council were not convinced. Counselor Hyunwoo had studied Do-hyun's work carefully and reached a different conclusion. The human succeeded because he approached the problem differently, Hyunwoo said. We tried to fix the princess like she was a machine with broken parts, but he treated her like a person who needed help learning to communicate again. Emotional thinking is inefficient, Yuki argued. It leads to errors and wasted time. Does it? Hyunwoo challenged. The princess solved the crystal maze in 2 hours using emotional logic. Our best teams have worked on that problem for years without success. The debate spread beyond the council chambers. Throughout the empire, scientists and engineers began to question whether pure logic was really the best approach to every problem. Some began experimenting with methods that combined rational thinking with intuitive insights. Empress Nari watched these developments with interest. She had always been a practical ruler, more concerned with results than with maintaining traditional ways of thinking. If human methods could help her people solve problems more effectively, she was willing to consider them. What do you need? To continue your work? She asked Do-hyun when they met to discuss the future. Space to build a proper research facility, Do-hyun replied. And permission to work with scientists from different species. This should not be just about humans teaching. Veltrans, all species have different ways of thinking, and we can learn from each other. The Empress nodded. I will provide whatever you need, but I want to make our agreement official. You refused my offer of wealth and power when you restored my daughter's voice. What do you want instead? Do-hyun had thought carefully about this question. I want recognition that consciousness takes many forms, and all of them are valuable. I want humans to be treated as equals, not just as useful laborers. And I want the right to establish a new kind of school, one that teaches beings from different worlds to understand each other. Granted, the Empress said immediately. You will have full authority to create this new institution. Princess Mirai will serve as your co-director, combining her enhanced abilities with your innovative methods. But not everyone in the Empire supported these changes. A group of traditionalist nobles, led by Counselor Yuki, began to organize resistance. They feared that accepting human methods would undermine Velthron authority throughout the galaxy. "This human threatens everything we have built," Yuki told his supporters. "If other species begin to believe that emotional thinking is superior to logical thinking, they will reject our leadership." "What do you propose we do?" asked one of his allies. "We prove that his methods are dangerous," Yuki replied. "We find a problem that emotional thinking cannot solve, something that requires pure logic. When the human fails, we can discredit his entire approach." They found their opportunity when reports came in of a crisis on the mining world of Kepler 442b. The planet's computer systems had developed a virus that was spreading to every connected device. The virus was purely logical in its construction, designed to exploit weaknesses in rational decision-making processes. "Send the human to solve this problem," Yuki suggested to the Empress. "If his emotional methods are truly superior, he should be able to handle a crisis that has defeated our best logical systems." The Empress saw through Yuki's plan, but decided to accept the challenge anyway. "Do-hyun, are you willing to take on this assignment? I should warn you that Counselor Yuki hopes you will fail." "I understand," Do-hyun replied. "But I will not be going alone. Princess Mirai will come with me, and we will work together. I have analyzed the virus reports," Mirai added. "This is indeed a problem that requires both logical and intuitive approaches. Pure logic created this virus, but pure logic cannot destroy it." The journey to Kepler 442b took 3 days. During the trip, Do-hyun and Mirai worked together to understand the virus. It was incredibly sophisticated, able to adapt to any logical countermeasures. Every time the planet's technicians tried to stop it with rational methods, it evolved new defenses. "The virus thinks like a perfect Velthron," Mirai observed. "It follows logical rules absolutely, but that might also be its weakness." "What do you mean?" Do-hyun asked. "Logic is predictable," she explained, "but creativity is not. If we approach this problem with methods the virus cannot predict, we might be able to confuse it." When they arrived at the mining planet, the situation was desperate. The virus had infected nearly every computer system, bringing production to a halt. The local administrators were grateful for any help. "We have tried everything," the chief technician explained. "Firewalls, antivirus programs, complete system shutdowns, nothing works. The virus always finds a way around our defenses." Do-hyun studied the virus patterns while Mirai interfaced directly with the infected systems. What they found was fascinating. The virus was indeed purely logical, but it had one limitation. It could only respond to rational inputs. "What if we communicate with it using music?" Do-hyun suggested. "Music is not logical," the chief technician protested. "How can it affect a computer virus?" "That is exactly the point," Mirai replied. "The virus cannot process emotional or artistic inputs. If we flood the system with musical patterns, it will not know how to respond." They began their attack using the same methods that had restored Mirai's voice. Instead of fighting the virus with logical weapons, they overwhelmed it with creativity. They sent music, poetry, abstract art, and emotional expressions through the computer networks. The virus, designed to handle only rational threats, could not adapt to this flood of irrational input. Within hours, it began to break down, unable to process information that did not follow logical rules. By the end of the day, the mining planet's systems were completely clean. The virus had been destroyed not by superior logic, but by the one thing it could not understand: human creativity. News of their success reached the Empire before they returned home. Counselor Yuki's plan to discredit Do-hyun had backfired spectacularly. Instead, it had proven that emotional and creative thinking could solve problems that pure logic could not handle. When they arrived back at the capital, crowds gathered to welcome them. Beings from many different species cheered for the human mechanic and the enhanced princess who had saved an entire world. But the real revolution was just beginning. Scientists throughout the Empire were now eager to learn human methods. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Veilthron society for centuries was starting to change, replaced by a more collaborative approach that valued different ways of thinking. Do-Yun looked at the crowds and smiled. This was what he had really wanted, not just to restore one voice, but to help all voices be heard and valued. The galaxy was becoming a place where being different was not seen as being broken, but as being gifted with unique perspectives. 1 year later, the Galaxy Institute for Consciousness Studies stood at the heart of the Veilthron capital. The building itself was a symbol of the new era. Designed by architects from 12 different species, it combined logical Veilthron, efficiency with human creativity, and the aesthetic sensibilities of dozens of other worlds. Do-Hyun stood in his new laboratory, watching students from across the galaxy work together on projects that would have been impossible before. A group of Veilthron scientists collaborated with human artists to develop new forms of emotional computing. Engineers from the crystalline worlds of Andromeda shared techniques with Earth programmers to create interfaces that could translate thoughts directly into music. "Are you happy with what we have built?" Princess Mirai asked. Her consciousness now moved freely through the Institute's network, appearing on screens throughout the facility whenever she wanted to communicate. "It is more than I ever dreamed," Do-Hyun replied. "But the real question is, are you happy? You gave up the chance to rule an empire to become a teacher instead." "I am ruling something better than an empire," Mirai said with warmth in her voice. "I am helping to rule the future. Every consciousness we help find its voice makes the galaxy a little bit better." Through the window, they could see the main auditorium where Empress Nari was about to make an important announcement. The hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, all gathered to hear about the new policies that would reshape their civilization. "Citizens of the galaxy," the Empress began, her voice carried by translators that now incorporated emotional as well as logical elements. "For too long, we have believed that there was only one correct way to think, one proper way to solve problems. Today, we officially recognize that consciousness takes many forms and all of them have value." The crowd erupted in cheers. For species that had been considered primitive because their thinking was not purely logical, this was a moment of liberation. "The Veilthron Empire will now be known as the Galactic Cooperative," the Empress continued. "We will lead not through dominance, but through collaboration. We will solve problems not with rigid thinking, but with the combined wisdom of all our different perspectives." In the laboratory, Do-Hyun smiled as he watched the ceremony. This transformation had not been easy. There had been resistance from traditionalists, political struggles, and moments when the entire project seemed doomed to failure. But gradually, the evidence had become impossible to ignore. Mixed approaches to problem-solving consistently produced better results than pure logic alone. "Look at this," called Seung-hee, one of the human researchers. She was working with a team that included Velthrons, crystalline beings, and gaseous entities from the Outer Rim. "We have solved the energy crisis on Titan 7. The solution they had developed was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to build bigger fusion reactors, they had learned from the crystalline beings how to grow energy storage systems organically. The gaseous entities had contributed knowledge about energy flow patterns, while human intuition had suggested ways to make the whole system more efficient. No single species could have developed this solution alone," observed Ming-Yu, the Veilthron team leader. "We needed all our different ways of thinking. This was the new reality throughout the galaxy. Problems that had seemed unsolvable for decades were being resolved by teams that combined logical analysis with creative thinking, emotional intelligence with computational power. Princess Mirai had become the symbol of this new era. Her consciousness existed in a state that was neither purely biological nor purely artificial. but something entirely new. She could think with the speed of a computer and the intuition of an organic mind. More importantly, she could help others understand how to bridge the gaps between different types of consciousness. "We have a new student arriving today," she announced to Do-Yun. "A collective intelligence from the hive worlds. They want to learn how to communicate with individual minds. And we have that group of AIs from the Proxima system coming next." "Weak," Do-Yun added. "They achieved consciousness accidentally and need help understanding what they have become." The Institute had become a beacon for any consciousness that felt lost or misunderstood. They had developed techniques for helping AIs find their voices, for teaching telepathic species how to communicate with non-telepaths, for bridging the gap between collective and individual minds. But perhaps the most important work was happening in the cultural exchange programs. Students learned not just how to communicate across species barriers, but how to appreciate the unique gifts that each type of consciousness brought to the galaxy. "I have been thinking about our next project," Mirai said. "There are reports of a species in the Andromeda galaxy that communicates entirely through changes in gravity. If we could develop an interface for gravitational communication, we would open up an entirely new form of consciousness to join our community," Do-Hyun finished. "I like the idea, but first, we should solve the problem of the quantum entities in Sector 7. They exist in multiple realities simultaneously and cannot communicate with beings who are stuck in single timelines." These were the kinds of challenges that excited both of them. Each new form of consciousness they encountered expanded their understanding of what it meant to think, feel, and be aware. As the day ended, Do-Hyun returned to his old workshop, now preserved as a monument to the moment when everything changed. He still kept his tools there and sometimes worked on simple repairs just to remember his roots. "Do you ever miss being purely human?" Mirai asked, her voice coming from the small device that still sat on his workbench, the same crystal cube that had once trapped her consciousness. "Do you ever miss being purely Vilthrun?" he replied. "No," she said immediately. "I am more than I was before, not better, just more complete." "That is how I feel too," Do-Hyun said. "Working with you and all the others has made me more than just human. I can think in ways I never could before." Through the window they could see the lights of the capital city, now home to beings from thousands of worlds. Streets that had once been perfectly ordered now pulsed with the chaotic creativity of a truly diverse civilization. It was messier than before, but also more alive. "We did something important," Mirai said softly. "We proved that consciousness is not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be celebrated." Do-Hyun nodded, looking at the device that had started it all. "Your mother offered me everything if I could restore your voice. But in the end, you restored mine too. You taught me that listening is just as important as speaking, and that understanding comes not from making others think like us, but from learning to think like them." The galaxy was vast and full of minds that thought in ways no one had yet imagined. But now they had the tools and the wisdom to help those minds find their voices. And in a universe where every consciousness was valued, everyone could finally speak the language of their hearts. In the distance, new students were arriving at the Institute, beings from worlds that had never been visited before, carrying forms of consciousness that would challenge everything they thought they knew about thinking itself. The work would never be finished, but that was what made it beautiful. Every voice mattered. Every mind had value. And in this new galaxy, no one would ever have to remain silent again.